Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. I want to introduce you to an interesting guy, an interesting politician. James McNair is his name, and he has launched in the last couple of years a new political party called the Direct Democracy Party. James McNair, how are you? Welcome to the show.
I'm doing well. Thank you very much.
So tell us a little bit about you and your party, if you could. What's your background in politics, and why did you launch a brand new party?
Pretty much for a very long time, I felt there was something very wrong with the way that people engage politically with the powers that be. So through a lot of investigation and talking to every single party that existed in Canada, and then on my spare time, I would just call every registered party, every deregistered party, every party that existed in Canada. I would just at nighttime call them and ask them to unify, to come together under one banner, since there was so many different groups all beating their own drum per se. And through this, long period of time, I was able to organize, parties that exist to become under one brand, direct democracy. And direct democracy is a system that's set up that citizens have control of their government. It's not normal representative democracy. When you vote in a direct democracy candidate, the candidate does exactly what you want as a citizen or as a voter. So it's a much better system because it puts the power in the hands of Canadians rather than the powers of individuals. So to me, it was a no-brainer. We have to give the citizens control now because the people on top have not really done the job properly. So I trust the masses now, even with all their issues, over what's been going on the last 10, 20, 30 years. So this is what I've organized. I've been able to organize people together to be the direct democracy party or the direct democracy movement.
Why do you trust the masses more than the elites?
Well, I didn't even call them elites because they're just people that have jobs. They have responsibilities. For example, Jagmeet Singh, he has a new child on the way. So clearly some of his decisions making will be financial for his family. He probably propped up the Liberals because he'll get his pension. If he stays till 2025, he'll get his $10,000 a month pension for life. So these are things that politicians think about, and they make decisions for the whole country based upon financial personal issues. So that's a problem. So what direct democracy does, it'll force recall. So anyone can be recalled from the top, from the prime minister to MPs to judges to anyone in the system, right down to municipal politics. Direct democracy will give citizens the power to recall anyone that is causing problems. And it'll be more of you always have that feeling that you screw up, you will be removed and replaced. And that'll get people that are running the government to be on their toes and do what we need them to do to help Canadians, not whatever personal agendas or, seeking a pension to survive in the future. It's a very good way to allow us to have control of anyone that's in control of us.
Right. Okay. So it's effectively that the representatives have to do what the people want. And second of all, you've got recall. Anything else is a basic tenet of the direct democracy party?
Yeah, you cannot breach any charter rights. The charter is the fundamental basis to what we do. So direct democracy won't even allow any bending of the charter. There can't be any suggestions or any sort of input that'll bend the charter in any way. The certain charter rights are ingrained in what we do. So there's no chance of an individual politician or a party saying, oh, well, let's just bend those rules slightly. Let's just bend the charter a bit because of this reason. No, direct democracy, there's certain fundamentals that will not be put on the table because right away it's a breach. Like, okay, sorry, we can't go down that road. And that's a breach of the charter. So it won't even come up as an issue.
We're chatting tonight with James McNair. He is the leader of a party called the Direct Democracy Party. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back more with James. I can ask him whether this works anywhere else in the world, what the response of other parties has been, what the response of the people has been. And I understand he's running some candidates in the upcoming Quebec provincial election, what he thinks might happen there. Stay with us, everybody. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. I'm chatting today with James McNair. He is the co-leader of the Direct Democracy Party with an individual by the name of Parta Dua. Is that the correct pronunciation of his name?
That's correct, yes.
And he's a Sikh gentleman and very active in democracy and party politics and democracy as well. And an interesting gentleman who I've had the pleasure of meeting as well. James, you're up north somewhere where you're building houses, I understand, right now.
That's correct. Mr. Dua essentially dumped all his personal wealth into a nonprofit, which is at directdemocracy.com, which is a nonprofit we established alongside that controls the voting system for the direct democracy parties, and also starts actively working on the things that the government has not been able to do, like, provide housing for the elderly, improve our healthcare situation by essentially helping elderly with a community that has clinics and all these other items along with the housing. So it's essentially Mr. Dua has pumped his personal money and equity in all his assets to move this forward, because winter's coming and we have to get started now, because it's much more difficult to build in the winter. We had an opportunity to build last winter, but because of the high level of snow up north, it was very difficult for us to start. So now we've gone ahead and we've started building. Our first tenant is coming up on Tuesday. I'll be heading to Ottawa to pick her up and bring her there. And she's looking forward to a new life and having her own individual unit at a cost that she can afford. So it's very exciting times.
Fantastic. Congratulations. Tell me a little bit, if you could, of the reaction that other political parties that you've contacted and talked about, joining your efforts have had. What's the response been?
Well, a lot of them feel they are heading in the right direction. They feel that they have a good vision. They have a good, understanding what's happening. And they just seem to be, they think that they are going the right direction. And I've always said to them, it's like, listen, if everyone gets together on one voice and we're all working together on one plan, we'll be more effective. And some of them are just, maybe they're interested in having some camaraderie, or they're interested in, some sort of idea they have that they feel is the right way to go. But generally, I find it's hard to convince people that they are on the wrong track, or perhaps we should work together. A lot of them do feel they're either tired or they're giving up, and they think it's hopeless. But I always reaffirm to them is like, listen, all we have to do is to convince people to wake up one day, walk to a polling station, and put an X on a piece of paper for a new party. It's not complicated. You just stand up one day, the 60% of people that don't vote, they go over, they vote for themselves through direct democracy, they take full control of their lives. Rather than watch the news on your phone and worry and complain, and you can actually start inputting directly using technology that exists to change your own life or put input. So you start feeling like you are in control of your own destiny. And these are things that if people can just do that, to realize that you just have to wake up, put an X on a piece of paper, and then have control of your own lives. This is what brought people together, and why we've been able to have a Quebec party, an Ontario party, a federal party. There's also a direct democracy party in British Columbia. So yeah, this is the future, and been running in Switzerland for a very long time. They went digital over 10 years ago, putting input for the government. So, and Switzerland's the most the richest country in the world. So we should probably try to do that as well.
So tell us a little bit about how this system works in Switzerland, if you could.
Yeah, well, the system in Switzerland is a little bit different than what we would do. But however, over there, their prime minister or president is only in power for 1 year, or represents their direct democracy government for 1 year. And then they're switched out because they don't really have any power anyways. They're just a representative for the government. That, say you have meetings around the world, you got to send somebody to be your representative, but they have no real power. They're just there as a token figurehead, and all the decisions are made throughout the country through these different regions, and they all vote electronically on major issues. And of course, politicians can be like recalled, and there's referendum all the time. So it's a more engaged system. However, it's very unlikely that in a system like that you'll end up screwing yourself. Like, why would you do something or vote a certain way that would injure your own life? It's very unlikely. So it's running very well there. So let's bring it here and be done with it. And then Canadians can be.
My son lived in Switzerland for a while, and he described this referendum book that came out that was really quite comprehensive.
Yeah.
Is that your understanding, that you get this like pamphlet that's got, like 100 different questions or 50 different questions that you have to vote on?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think they've gone digital too. So you do the same thing from your cell phone. I mean, we have ways to tell who is who on a cell phone, text message verification. All these new technologies exist that we can use to give us control as Canadians over our government. The way I look at it is, from our perspective, you have an MP that's voted in your local riding. If that local MP is fully controlled by its constituents, so the MP says, okay, how do you want me to vote on this issue? Yes or no? So the job of a politician becomes extremely easy. You just have to get the actual input from the citizens and do that. So it's better for the politician, and it's also better for the citizens. It's a better life for everybody.
Aren't they supposed to do that? Aren't they our representative? Aren't they supposed to canvass what their constituents want and effectively vote in support of what their constituents direct them to?
Well, yeah, of course, but you know how it is with party politics. The leader or the party or the special interest groups or the lobbyists have more say than individual, on the ground, like the Brian, Joe Blow, plumber, doesn't feel like he has control of his life. However, in a direct democracy system, the leader of the party has one vote. That plumber has one vote. Everyone has the exact same power on any issue. Like, there's no one on top is going to say, hey, you vote this way. No, there's no whipping of the vote. We don't whip our MPs to vote any way. They get the direct access, direct communication from their constituents, and they vote that way. That way, the corruption is essentially erased.
So you're saying that even though our local MPs and MPPs are supposed to represent our constituent views, the people that are in their constituency, their riding, they don't really. They do what the leader says, what the whip says. Of
course, right? They want to maintain their jobs. They don't want to be kicked out of caucus. They want to get their pension and be comfortable and not to worry anymore. So they just got to make it to that 6-year period. Who wouldn't want a $10,000 plus a month pension for life? It's very hard not to cave your own morals just to protect yourself. And people have families. They want to make sure they're protected for the future. So people make these decisions. However, in our party, none of us really can be coerced by money anymore, because we're all businessmen. We're all in different areas of we're scientists. We're all in areas that we don't need the money. It's about setting it up so people have control. And really, what do I have to lose by setting it up this way? I mean, either we succeed, people have control of our lives, Canadians have control of their lives again, or it continues the way it's been going for many, many, many years, and people feel they have no control of their lives. And every election, you're voting Liberal, you're voting Conservative, you're voting Liberal, voting Conservative, voting Liberal, voting Conservative. It gets to a point that it's almost insanity. And structurally, we are here to tell people, no, how would you just vote for yourself? Take control of your own life.
But as you pointed out in the last election, only 41% or something like that, maybe it's 42% of the people voted. So, almost 60% didn't bother voting. And so doesn't that say that the vast majority of people just don't care?
No, of course they just don't understand. They're frustrated because why would they go out and vote? And they know that it's not going to make a difference because the people will still do, or the parties will still do what they want to do. So it's fully understandable that people haven't come out and voted till this point, because if your vote does not have any impact, why do you keep doing it? But if you vote for yourself, if you vote for direct democracy, and then people start getting messages from their phone how to alter the government, or how we do this or how we do that, and people start getting engaged, I think people enjoy it. They give some power in your hands, and no matter if you're a Liberal or a Conservative, you'll enjoy having that ability to affect your own life or change your own life. And the fact that your MP locally, if he messes around, he's immediately recalled he keeps them on his toes. You won't feel like as soon as they get elected, it has disappeared to nowhere land and you can't talk to them anymore. No, no, no. You have full control of your MP. It's just, to me, it's what I want to do. So if we succeed, I can go rest and just relax and know that, okay, at least Canadians are running the ship. You know, there's actually a captain, us, that are controlling this massive ship around, you know? Like what do we have in this country? We have oil, potash, trees, water, diamonds. What do we not have? Farmland. And every Canadian is taxed like to a point of, you know, frustration. Like, why aren't we able to come together as a whole country? If we have to buy out the corporations that are controlling our commodities, so be it. At least we will be in control of our own destiny. How can we keep doing this as Canadians, working so hard and having nothing? Look at the elderly that we're working on. They paid taxes their whole life, and then now they're just like, okay, well, thanks for paying taxes, then go be quiet and die somewhere, some crappy apartment somewhere. Like, what is that? How can we like, that's insane. Like they've supported us, they've built all this infrastructure, and now because you're older and tired and quiet, they just pretend they're not there, like starving to death and, you know, dealing with inflation and eating crappy food. And like, what have we become? Like, what are we doing? So, I mean, how is it that someone like Partsap has to dump all his personal money into a nonprofit just to start building things? And we have to go all the way north to some place we can legally even do it. We've been rejected by the Toronto City. We offered to eliminate homelessness. So they just let us put some of our little units that we built that we could put in parking spots. Denied. Oh, legal this, legal that. You can't function when there's so much bureaucracy. You cannot do anything to even help people that need help. So we're hoping that people will wake up, know we're here. I don't, you know, donate money to the nonprofit, directdemocracy.com, or donate money to the party with the limitation of how much they restrict us to take there, so we can spread the word and move forward as a country and actually maybe, you know, change this place quickly for the better, which is pretty easy to do once we have control of our tax money and we figure out how we're spending and reallocate that money to first help Canadians, especially the elderly Canadians, so they have a very good end of life experience, because that's what I want, to have a good life when I'm old. So let's do that first.
So it sounds like some of the other policies that you and your party would support would be either old age pensions or housing for the elderly. And number two, you've talked about nationalization of some of our natural resources and taking control of some of the companies that control our natural resources. And then it sounds like number three, getting rid of some of the bureaucracy and housing to make housing more affordable. Would that be some of your other major policies?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we have to allow people to have a home. Like I've done experiments with my own businesses. I owned a hotel, and I allowed the police to bring me people that were, you know, emergency situation. Like they either have to take a person to the hospital or to jail or keep them in a car all night. So I said, no, bring them to me. I'll worry about it, and I'll figure out, you know, what the problem is, and we'll give them a bed for the night. And that way the police can just use the resources properly, because they are driving around all night. There's only 2 police in the area I was in, so they can drop off the person who just in some sort of domestic dispute. It was some sort of minor incident that the police were called. Also, separate party.
We seem to have lost our connection. We're going to take. Oh,
I don't ask for any money, and it just allows us. But system that we have emergency housing. So if you're in trouble, if you're even a single mother, you know, have a child on the way, you can just go and say, hey, I need a house. Because primarily checks don't help. Housing helps. Okay. So if you don't know how to build a house, there's a policy.
Checks don't help. Housing helps.
Yeah. Because if you have a house, you can rest. If you have food, you can get better. But if you just have a check in your pocket and nowhere to live to rest your head, what good is a check going to be to you? It's just a piece of paper with money to, maybe you can walk around at Tim Hortons and buy Timbits or coffee all night. Didn't sit up in Tim Hortons, but that's not going to help you function and change your life. So with our housing issue, especially now with the Liberal government bringing in like millions of people, we have a serious problem. We don't have housing. And if we get people to help us build housing, then we can solve the problem, even if we're not elected. But if we have to wait till we actually have political power, so be it. But we're doing both at the same time because time's up. Winter's cold, and a lot of people are.
I agree with you. I interviewed the deputy chief economist for the CMHC, Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation, 2 weeks ago, who recently released a report that said we need 1.8 million extra homes to be built in Southern Ontario in the next 8 years. Otherwise, we're not going to have a reasonable level of affordability. And he put it squarely at government and government regulation, and said that we are some of the most heavily regulated municipalities in all of North America. And it's the time to get approvals to build, and it's the cost, and it's the red tape where they have the bureaucracy and the local councillors and the local residents that might be more interested in what they want rather than what's right for the whole community. Sometimes referred to as NIMBYs, not in my backyard, end up having a greater influence such that we don't build anywhere near close to the amount of housing that we build, the housing that we need. How would you solve that?
Well, I'd say we're solving it right now. So if every Canadian essentially give a nonprofit like directdemocracy.com $20, essentially that would be enough money to almost eliminate that problem right there, the way we're operating. But people have to get engaged, and they have to help, essentially, because people can't do it alone. And it's very hard to convince people to even donate to anything anymore, because people are very skeptical. I mean, if you donate to political parties, people are skeptical. If you donate to charities, people are skeptical. But we have to start working together to build homes ourselves. Either we do it politically or we do it through a nonprofit. But if we don't do it now, there's going to be a lot of suffering and a lot of people causing problems to people in the cities. Because if you don't have anything, what you do is you take what you have to take to survive. You will do whatever it takes to survive. And if you keep pressuring people and pushing people to the brink, this is what's going to happen in the cities. And people have already noticed the crime has gone up, and this is what happens. So we have to quickly get together, either vote in direct democracy party across the board, firstly, so we can actually do something with our politics and control our own lives. And then also through directdemocracy.com, which is the nonprofit in the voting system, start building homes now so that we can fix the problems before it ends up on our front door, because it will end up on people's doorsteps. I mean, it did in my house and in my house when I ran that business. And if you fix the problems, then the problems are gone. If you just ignore the problems, they get worse. That's how life works.
We're chatting tonight with James McNair. He is a co-leader of the Direct Democracy party that's got a Ontario division, it's got a federal division, it's got a Quebec division, and a BC division. We're going to take a break for just 2 minutes for some messages and come back more with James. I'm going to ask him whether he's seen this work anywhere else other than Switzerland, and I'm going to ask him about some other policies and some other responses that people have had in election campaigns to his ideas. Stay with us, everybody.
1 second. Oh.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. My guest tonight is James McNair. He is a co-leader of a party called the Direct Democracy Party, which is a Ontario party, a Quebec party, a federal party. And his tenets are number one, direct democracy, and number two, recall. Such that if his party was elected, you would have the opportunity to actually recall any representative at any level of government if they're not deemed to be doing their job. And the direct democracy he wants to execute by way of either a referendum that is a booklet that you get to make decisions, or frankly, he says that it's something that we can do online. James, you told us all about the Switzerland example. Does referendum work anywhere else in the world?
I'm not sure where else it actually functions very well, but I know in Switzerland it does. And thank goodness they have the system running there, so we have some sort of example. This idea was brought to me by Mr. Vezina out of Ontario, who's been pushing for this, the 3 R's: referendum, reform, and recall, or real reform, he says. And And I realized that, yeah, that is the way to go. And thank goodness that Switzerland has the system running. So I had an example of a place that actually works. I mean, we do have referendum in British Columbia. I believe it has been used once or twice. But federally, it's very important that politicians know that they have, if they screw up, that they'll be recalled. Then they lose their job, they lose their, their pension, they lose whatever they do, whatever they have, that they right now make decisions that are personal choices for their own benefit, that'll be taken right off the table.
I think there's two other examples that I pointed to that I think are kind of interesting. Obviously, the Quebec referendum, which has happened twice, where Quebecers had the opportunity to vote whether they wanted to separate out from Canada or not. And as we know, the last one was like 50.1 to 49.9. It was unbelievably close. Obviously, a very important decision. Decided that the direct method of voting through referendum was the right way to have that vote, rather than allowing elected representatives to make that decision. And it had a turnout that was almost 100%. So on an important decision, you put it to the people. There was a huge amount of participation, a huge amount of interest, and people came out and voted because it was and even though there was some complaints about the question being complicated, it was a fairly simple question. There was also a referendum in Ontario on whether people wanted to change the electoral system. And again, a pretty important question. Do you want to change the way that you're going to elect our elected representatives and form our, the structure that would form our government? And again, I think the participation and the knowledge and publicity and information about it was pretty high. Regrettably, it was a little bit of a complicated question again. And so I think that one of the keys of referendum is you got to make the questions simply reasonably easy to understand, and it's got to be close to a yes/no rather than a very convoluted question. And the challenge with that is, frankly, not all of the issues that we have in political life are easy questions and form themselves into a yes/no. But I do think it's very telling that we've already admitted effectively that on really important decisions, we got to go right to the people, which makes sense. I think there's also, a good comparable in corporate law, where if you want to make a major decision like sell the company, sell all or substantially all of the assets, major corporate decisions, you've got to go to a shareholder vote. You can't just have the board of directors decide. And often it's interesting that in that kind of a situation, the shareholder vote isn't just a 50.1%. It often has to be a 2/3 majority. So a major corporate change takes 2/3 of the votes to change. So I do think that in other places in life, we've come to accept that direct democracy, whether it be in corporate life or for major decisions, is the right way to go. I really wonder why we haven't done it in more things, particularly as you state that with technology, it's far easier to do it today. We do our banking online, we do census online, we seemingly do more and more things online that need confidentiality, that we need to assert that it is the individual that we're trying to talk to that is the one that is communicating with us. So I don't see why we can't vote, whether it's in just a general election or for a referendum online, to make it really easy for people to vote.
Yeah, precisely. It's the technology is there, so let's do it. Let's walk down the street the next elections, put an X on a piece of paper for a direct democracy, and then we'll set it up. There's no harm. There's no risk. I mean, I know people are, frustrated and, feel like they've given up, but that's why legally we've established the ability to go and do this. This is what we are doing. So if we do this, then politicians we elect are on their toes. And I think that Canadians will actually start enjoying the fact that they have control of their government. They'll actually, I think it'd be fun. Like, do you want things to be this way? And like, you look at your phone, you're like, oh, wow, I don't want that. So you feel like you've made a difference that day. And we, take 15 minutes out of your life, every 3 or 4 months or every 6 months to, make decisions for yourself and your own family and your future. I would think, it'd be fun and enjoyable to have that control of your life. I mean, who would not want to have more control of your life?
What's the response been at the doors in election campaigns to your party's ideas?
Well, we've had very good response from Conservatives and Liberals. They both love it. But the only thing I've felt is people feel like do you think we can actually get away from the two major parties? Can we just a almost like a woe is me, like maybe we can't do it. Like, well, of course we can. We just got to just go vote. Just, if you want to run for direct democracy federally or in Quebec or Ontario or anywhere, just let us know. You can go to the federal party site at directdemocracyparty.net. Leave us a message, send us an email. It's info@directdemocracyparty.net. If you want to give us, say, hey, I want to run, I want to do this, then we're here to do it. We have the legal means to do this. So let's do this.
So you say the response has been good, but you haven't actually gotten a lot of following either from the major political parties or in the actual votes yet.
Well, we've actually noticed that the Liberals and even Mr. Poilievre they've been talking about direct democracy, but they won't really want to implement it because it makes your job harder. You can't make mistakes without getting getting in trouble or getting removed. So why would you really want to have a direct democracy system if you're already an established party or you're a politician? You don't want to have the ability to make a mistake and then actually get fired. You want to continue the way it's going. So if you make a mistake, then, you remain. And also for someone like the Conservatives who, let's say they're about 35 or 40% of the population in Canada, why would Poilievre want a direct democracy system if 60% of the people would probably vote him out?
Yeah. It's interesting because there's, obviously recall in California, as you know, and during general elections, the votes tends to go Democrat versus Republican. And the issues are far more federal and who the president, who's on the presidential ticket and coattails to the other people. But it's interesting in the recall votes that they've had, the attention's all on the individual at question because that's what the issue is. And so therefore you get far more attention to actually whether people are doing their job or not. And it's interesting when the issue is, again, once more clearly defined, and it's on whether in the last recall, whether the governor of California was doing a good job or a bad job, turnout goes up. And so people really do pay attention when the questions are simple and straightforward and put to them. And the recall votes in California haven't often necessarily worked, but what they've done is they've focused the issues and ensured that there is a lot of attention to it and turnout's gone up. There's also been a bunch of academic studies that you're probably aware of on recall that show that even when you threaten a recall and start collecting the signatures to put someone on notice that they may be recalled, corruption goes down, attendance at meetings goes up, all the activities that you want from an elected representative improve, even just by threatening it. So just having the ability to have recall and every once in a while actually making use of it disciplines politicians to do a far better job.
That's right. And that's what I would just love to see, so I can just relax in life and, find some place to retire and just realize that, hey, at least Canadians are in the driver's seat, because I will trust a random Canadian over anyone that has been in power or been a politician for 25, 30 years, because, it's very hard to not take bribes. It's very hard not to be coerced or, it's very difficult to, stay ethical. So why not force it on people by having recall and referendum, which would essentially solve any issue, all these, protest groups or all these people that popped up. If everyone just worked together and had a recall system or a referendum system or a direct democracy system, all these issues would just.
What are the issues that
truly, if the majority wanted a certain thing and our charter rights be protected, all these different complaints done.
One of the issues that a lot of political parties and a lot of people have been talking about, nothing's been done, is that there's a failure really in our first past the post system, and that some sort of change to proportional representation or preferential voting or something like that might make sense. Have you got any point of view on whether either of those ideas make any sense?
To do. So there's nothing wrong with the way it's set.
Yeah, please.
There's nothing wrong with Yeah, the way the system is set up right now is fine with a direct democracy system, because you'll get your representative elected, but that elected individual does exactly what the constituents want. So there's nothing wrong with the system as it is now if there's a direct democracy MP in your riding, because that MP has to do exactly what the citizens want. So there's no need for first past the post with the direct democracy system, because citizens have control over their local ridings. There's no point for that at that point.
So you would be happy with sticking with our first past the post system.
It would just got
convoluted. We're going to take a break.
So
we're going to take a break and come back more with some concluding comments in just a minute. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. We're talking about our democracy tonight with James McNair, who is a co-leader of the Direct Democracy Party, which is a party that's in Ontario. It's in Quebec. It's going to be running some candidates in the upcoming Quebec provincial election that's happening this fall. And it's also got a party in British Columbia. And his basic tenets are, number one, direct democracy referendum, that people can vote on the policies that affect us all. And number two, recall, such that he has the right, the electors have the right to recall their elected representatives if they're not doing the job that the people think they should be doing. James, as you may know, I actually put my name forward as a candidate for the None of the Above party, which was talking about referendum recall and also proportional representation. And so it was something that I feel very passionately about. And I found that lots of people were very supportive of the idea, but people kept on saying, unless you're running for one of the major three parties, you haven't got a chance of winning. And as you know, in the last election, the NDP and the Liberals had exactly the same vote. The NDP got something like 5 times as many seats. And a conservative vote counted 16 times the power of a Green vote. Because lots of people voted Green across the province and only elected one MPP. So there is something wrong with our system, such that I think people feel like it's stacked up against them and they can't make change. And so they don't bother going out to vote, even if there's something that they're passionate about. And they, in conversations, would support some of the ideas you're talking about, but don't think if you're not running for one of the major parties, you got any chance of implementing it. So why bother going? What do you say to all that?
Well, I say that's a mentality that the major parties want to make people believe. But all you have to really do, if those 60% or even the people that do vote decide to vote for direct democracy in a representative that represents them. I mean, extreme parties, they're tired of, getting voted in, making promises, and then nothing happening. It's been going on for as long as I remember, and why I got involved in this. So at least if I succeed to getting people to vote in direct democracy, I'm at least, now I know my fellow Canadians are steering my ship. So I can rest knowing that at least Canadians have what they need and want to have happen. Like, it's much better than trusting individuals that have been involved in government for many years, and nepotism and all these problems we've developed can be eliminated instantly if people just wake up one day, walk down the street, put an X for a direct democracy representative. We open the books, we reallocate all the funds to actually help people, housing people, changing our system so it's fair, giving people hope, and it's over. Like, it's just, of course, these mainstream parties keep telling people there's no point to vote somewhere else, because then they can stay in power and continue the reign of terror. And it's not really a reign of terror. They feel they know what's right, and they protect themselves like most humans do. So it's a normal thing to protect yourself as a human, but it's better if a government is run by us at this point, because, it has to be done. I mean, what else can we do? We got to do something. We can't continue like this. So,
James McNair, if people want to check out your party, is there a website they should go to? Yeah,
it's directdemocracyparty.net. That's the federal party. So please give as much money as you can. I don't care if it's $20, $100, just because we can actually get out there. You can learn about us. We can convince more MPs to run for us. Next election's probably right around the corner. I don't know how much longer the NDP are going to prop up this Liberal government. So let's do that. And if you don't want to give any money to a political party anymore, which is fully understandable, there's a nonprofit at directdemocracy.com who's already started providing homes for elderly people, and just help us out, and you'll have at least the knowledge that we're building homes for people right away, and we're starting right away, and we're trying to get, our target is get 100,000 homes built within the next couple of years through the nonprofit, and that's our goal. So any help you guys can do to make this possible, and I mean, it's going to be great, because I've already seen a lot of impact from just helping people have a house. That is what we have to focus on. And we're all builders here in this party and the nonprofit. We actually know how to build things. So it's hard for politicians that don't even know how to swing a hammer to actually build things efficiently or cost effectively. How can you do something if you've never done it before? So that's the problem we have here. Like, if you go to university right out of college, I mean, you go to university, you become a politician right away. How do you know how to actually do anything? You don't. You're a career politician, or you may have an MBA, but if you don't know how to build anything, how could you build things efficiently? You're just going to trust others to build things, throw a bunch of money at the problem, and why didn't it work? It's like, well, because you just can't just keep throwing money at things. You actually have to physically do it yourself. So that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to change. So
James McNair, co-leader of the Direct Democracy Party. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and tell us a little bit about your party, about referendum, about recall, and about your housing strategy. Really appreciate it. That's our show for tonight, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I remind you, I'm on every Monday through Friday at 6 o'clock on 960 AM. You can stream me online, even from Northern Ontario at www.saga960am.ca. Good night, everybody.